and welcome to Blossom Sandwich Sews. My name is Yvette, and you may notice that I'm not in front of my usual stark white background, and that is because this video's mission is to reorganize the sewing cupboard. So I did already previously do a video showing my sewing cupboard and where everything's stored. So I'm just going to quickly go through the sections of the cupboard to tell you about like what's working or mostly what's not working. And then I will share my plans for how I'm going to change it, maybe do a bit of process, and then the final reveal for my much more beautifully organised and practical sewing space, hopefully. So I'm going to start at the bottom of the cupboard and work my way up. So in this very bottom drawer are usable scraps. So when I cut out a project, I will keep anything big enough to potentially use, and then anything that is like smaller that I couldn't even use to make a pocket, or those little stringy bits you get along the end, they go into scrap. So this is stuff that you could in theory use, and I'm actually quite happy with this drawer. I don't think I'm going to do anything to this drawer, but I thought just for completeness I'd include it. So this is the scraps and how they're stored in here. So they're folded kind of in the Marie Kondo way, so you can see what's there. So we've got cottons, smaller bits of cotton here. These are like thicker fabrics like Ventana twills. And then these are things like viscoses here. And I tend to use these types of scraps to make toiles a lot of the time so that I don't have to buy extra fabric for toiles. So this is actually an example of one of my crazy toiles that I've made using all different scrap fabrics. So this is for the bodice of the Shea dress, which I'm currently working on. So it's just a good way to use fabric and not feel guilty about it because it's all just come from the scrap drawer. So that's the scraps. The next level up is where I store my paper patterns. So those are fairly organised. So I've got post-it notes for like dresses, dungarees, trousers, tops. And then I've also got lots of vintage patterns in the back. So one of the things that I need to do is get all of these vintage patterns uploaded to my stash hub so that I know what I've got. And then this half of the drawer, this is the disaster zone right here. So the idea of this is that it's where I keep my like current works in progress or things that I've cut out ready to sew. But it's kind of just got sort of rammed with all kinds of garbage, you know, like just patterns that I couldn't be bothered to put away and things like that. So I need to go through this, figure out what's even there and decide what to do with it. I've also got some like old toiles and stuff that I probably need to get rid of or cut up so I can reuse the fabric. So yeah, this area here is where this drawer needs work. And then this next drawer up, this is where like all the good stuff is. All the useful like little bits are in here. But at the moment, it looks ugly. So this just sort of needs to tidy up. There's a few bits like there's a tin underneath here, which I can't really access. And I think it's just full of a lot of junk that I can probably get rid of. So yeah, I just need to have a sort through this and maybe just think of a way to tidy it up a bit. There's also quite a lot of sort of stationery and things in this drawer, so maybe those could get rehomed somewhere else if I find the drawer is messy just because there's too much in it. But I have got my threads in my spool pods, which I really like as a solution. So yeah, this drawer's got everything like threads, buttons. I've got these sort of drawer system here, but you can't even see it. So this has got all kinds of things like bias binding, more buttons, labels, stuff like that. So I'm going to keep this. I think this is working quite well. I just need to basically find a more sensible home for everything else in the drawer. So moving up to the first shelf, this is where I'm keeping my patterns. So I've got these two really useful boxes. So I've got uncut patterns and then cut patterns. So usually I get my patterns printed A0 and then cut them out to save me having to trace them. But this box here with the dresses and the tops is absolutely rammed. And then I've got trousers in this ring binder, mostly because I couldn't fit another one of these boxes on this shelf. So the patterns need some rethinking. Then I've just got a few sort of random bits this side, like some books and sewing magazines that I need to decide if it's worth keeping. And then one of the issues with this cupboard is that it's very deep. So there is also stuff behind, but it's not that accessible. So there are things like more kind of crafty supplies and scrapbooking things in the back. So again, I need to decide if I'm going to keep those somewhere else or just create a system that's more easy to access them. So this middle shelf is probably the biggest disaster in the stash that needs to be sorted. So it's mostly taken up by this, which was supposed to be like a tiny armchair filled with scraps, which didn't work. There's a reason that there's like wood inside real sofas and armchairs. Anyway, yeah, basically I just decided that I didn't want to make a poof. I wanted to get creative, tried this armchair thing, it didn't work out. But anyway, I need to figure out what to do with all these scraps because realistically, I'm never going to use them. It's just wasting quite a lot of space, me keeping them. So I need to find a solution where I can actually recycle them or get rid of them somewhat sustainably. Otherwise, I guess I'll just have to put them in the regular bin, but you know, it feels bad. So yeah, need to figure out what to do with the scraps. So if anyone knows, please let me know. Then there's like some other sort of stash hub type stuff, which I need a proper place to store, not just like on top of this mountain of scraps, like business cards and things. So yeah, then I've got some random stuff like basting spray, these weights that I use for cutting stuff out. So yeah, this shelf is massively underutilized, mostly because it's been blocked with annoying scraps. So yeah, let me know your scrap solutions. TerraCycle is one of the things that I am considering, but it is quite expensive. So yeah, let me know your scrap recycling solutions. Now, I can imagine this top shelf is probably the one that you're most interested in because this is where all my fabric is. This is my whole fabric stash. In terms of issues, you can probably see the most evident issue is that it's on the top shelf. This is probably stuff like that I want to reach the most, but I'm really short, so I can't actually reach it. And also the fabric is all just sort of stacked on top of each other. So if I pull something out, it kind of gets in a mess or things will fall down behind. And also I have stored some other stuff behind, like some knitting bits and also my repair projects, but I can't access that without taking out all my fabric, which is a real pain because the stack's too big to pull it all out at once without them all kind of tumbling. So that's kind of my excuse for never doing my repairs from my like May 2022 Me Made May, where I found all these repairs, put them in a box, and now I can't do them because they're trapped. So I'm gonna hopefully make it so that the whole cupboard is more accessible, not just the stuff in the front. Okay, now it's time to get practical, to talk through my solutions to try and fix this hot mess. And the first solution, or the product, as they'd say on the home edit, is that I've bought another one of these 19-litre really useful boxes to store my patterns in. So my other patterns were all kind of rammed in the box. So what I'm going to do is probably move my trousers patterns out of the ring binder, maybe put the like trousers and tops in one of these and then have dresses in another, because dresses and tops together is too full, and then I'll keep this one for uncut. But because all of three won't fit on a shelf, I'm going to do them one on each shelf vertically like that, and then next to it I'm going to use this container for my fabric. So it will be on each shelf the fabric, and next to it a container of patterns. I don't think this demo is probably doing anything for you, but you'll see when it's done. It's gonna happen, it's gonna work. So I've also bought, to help organise my fabrics, some comic book boards off of Amazon. So these were actually smaller than I expected because they're not quite A4 size, but I think they'll actually fit perfectly into this container if I put them that way. And then when I've got the fabric folded onto the comic boards and put in here, I can decide whether I want to put it in like this way or whether I can store it like that so I can still see all the fabric. It just depends if they're going to fall out. But having the things inside the basket means I'll just be able to pick out the whole basket and hopefully access the things that are behind. So I've got 4 of these baskets, so I'm going to do 1 on each shelf, see how much fabric I can get into each. I might have to do some de-stashing in the process just to get everything to fit, and then maybe I'll have a spare one that I can put future scraps in, but I still would like to find a way to get rid of some of these scraps. So this is the progress of me rolling my fabric onto the comic book boards. So I found that for most fabrics, the best way to get them to fit onto the board was to fold them in half widthways and then fold them into 3. That just seemed to work out the correct width, and then just fold it around and around. And then the bolts are still fitting quite nicely in the basket, so I think I'm definitely going to do them that way around. This fabric is the fabric that I bought that is exactly the same as a ready-to-wear dress that I used to own. So I'm really excited to sew that up in the spring. And here's one that I could hopefully use for my So Fruity challenge that I run in the summer. So I'll be able to join in with my own fruity make. This first box I'm just using to store all my cottons together. So now I'm organising my patterns. So I've stuck with my Polly Pockets inside the Really Useful Box solution. And if you remember, I just bought an extra box. So I've moved all of the patterns out of the ring binder file. And now I've kind of reorganised the boxes so that I've got a reasonable amount in each of the 3 boxes. So then on each pattern, I've put a post-it note taped on to the Polly Pocket so that when I flick through, I can see what's what. And then they're organised by type. So I think this one is dresses, and then they're in alphabetical order from there. So I'm just putting in all of the patterns that were sort of abandoned in that chaos drawer and putting them back home. So now it's time to tackle the chaos drawer. So obviously I put this off till last. This is a toile of the Closet Core Pietra pants, and it just turned out dreadful. The fabric was quite a shifty viscose twill, and yeah, this is just going to go in the bin, and I think I'm going to throw away the pattern as well because it just didn't work for me. This is a kind of quilting type project that I had, so I'm going to keep that for now. These are some kind of patchwork squares that I made that I was going to use for a sewing machine cover that I never made, so I'm going to donate that. This is something I was supposed to make for my friend's birthday like 2 years ago. I should probably finish that. This is a toile of the Tilly and the Buttons Marnie top, which doesn't fit. I think I'm going to just try it on one more time just to see like why it doesn't fit and if that pattern can be salvaged. This is the Chandler pants. This is another trouser pattern that just didn't work for me. So I'm just going to take the elastic out because I might be able to reuse that for something else. But yeah, these I have to go. I don't need these taking up space in my chaos drawer. What is this? This is a toile that I made for the True Bias Shelby dress. There is actually a decent amount of fabric in this, like especially in the back panel, thanks to my big full seat adjustment that I did. So I'm going to keep that, but I'm going to put it in my scraps drawer in case I can reuse it. My stash reorganisation is complete. Everything is inside this cupboard. So are you ready to see? So I'll just give you a little view of the outside of the cupboard first. So this is the PAX system from IKEA. Still got some boxes on the top. And I've got one thin door with the mirror and then a bigger door. Ta-da! So I'll do what I did earlier on in the video, and I'll go up from the bottom and show you all the shelves and how I have organised them. So first up is this bottom drawer, and as I said earlier in the video, I haven't changed very much at all about this drawer. So I've just got my heavier scraps. This was my toile that I'm going to reuse the fabric from. I've got kind of cottony type scraps, and then more like viscosey scraps. So I just like to use those up for toiles, and then I've got ribbons in the back. The middle drawer is my patterns. So I've got all of my modern patterns here divided by type, so tops, dresses in the middle, which is most of them to be honest, and some dungarees and dresses at the front. I've got my vintage patterns here in the back, so let me know if you'd want to see another video on those where I upload them to Stash Hub, because I have done quite a ruthless clear out of my vintage patterns recently, so now I've only got ones that I think I might genuinely give a go. And then in this half of the drawer, this was chaos, but now I've just got a few projects made up and then my empty project wallet. So hopefully this doesn't become a horrible dumping ground in the future. So this drawer I have tidied up quite a lot. So I moved this box, it was around 90 degrees, so I moved it, and then I even unpeeled and restuck the labels so that they would be up the correct way, because I found I couldn't find anything when I couldn't read the labels. Then I've got all of my rulers and French curves and stuff in the front here. I've got overlocking threads in this box at the back, buttons in here in this bag, and yeah, some colouring pens, bigger threads, and then my other threads in the spool pods. And then in this box, I got rid of the lid of, it was the box that was at the back here, and have organised a few things in here. Let me take you in a bit closer. So I bought this little box at Hobbycraft just to put like the really small things in so they didn't get lost amongst everything else. And then this is sort of long thin stuff in packets. So this is, I think, is quite good. I think it's going to be good for keeping things organised and helping to be able to find things as well. So I did previously have my interfacing in this drawer, but I've now moved it, so I'll show you where that is later on. I've got these clear pencil cases for my zips and elastic. I've just put them down the side here. So now we're up to the shelves. So shelf number 1 has got fabric and pattern. So all of the shelves now have a box of fabric and a box of patterns in the front. So I bought an extra really useful box to put patterns in. So on this shelf is the uncut A0 patterns. So this will be stuff mostly that I haven't made. And then I've divided up the fabrics kind of by type. So this is like viscoses, and then I've got a couple of jerseys in here, and this is the only jersey that's in my stash because I don't sew a lot of jersey. And then now that the fabric is in the boxes, I can easily lift them out and access what's behind, because that was one of the issues with this cupboard, is that it's so deep that things can kind of get trapped behind. So I bought this, which is like a sort of file holder to put in things like my Fibre Mood magazine and spare Polly pockets that I use to hold patterns, a bit of spare pattern paper, you know, just all the sort of loose stuff just to keep that neat. And then I've also got a few other things in the back here, like my sketchbook, spare comic book boards, because I did wrap all my fabrics onto comic boards just to make them a little bit neater and give them a bit more structure to stand up. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. I've got my books in here as well, so they're not on display, but they are accessible because I can move the fabric out now. And then behind my pattern box is this box, which I'm not going to get out for you, but it's got lots of sort of paper crafting type stuff in. So that is that shelf. So now for the middle shelf. Again, same, got the box of fabric and the box of patterns. This one is cut pattern, so it's dresses and trousers slash jumpsuits, and there's a divider of cardboard down here to separate them apart, and then they're organised in alphabetical order by pattern name. So if I lift out this box, you can see what's behind. So this is another one of these boxes, but it's still got the creases in. So this is going to be my new scraps bin. So I spent a long time looking into how to get rid of my big bag of scraps, and there's just really like no options. So I just ended up having to throw them away in the regular disposal garbage route, which I did feel a bit bad about, but then I couldn't keep them. I didn't have space for them, and having them causing a mess in my sewing room was kind of bad for my productivity, and keeping clutter around isn't good for like your mental health and stuff. So I was like, it's, you know what, it's just got to go. There's no point me keeping it to only throw it in the bin at a later date. So I've got a new box just to like throw stuff in for now, but yeah, I don't know. Do let me know if you know of any solutions. And then behind here, I've just got some knitting stuff. So that is shelf number 2. So the top shelf, shelf number 3, is the same again with my cut patterns. This time is tops, and then misc, which is like sort of small projects. Then I've got another box of fabric, and I've also got my packet of interfacing in this box as well, because I felt like it was just too big and squishy for the setup that I've got in my top drawer now. So it slotted in quite nicely in there. And then this, the organisation, this is just kind of random fabric, so like kind of lacy ones, the beaded one, this flannel, just mostly stuff that wasn't quite in the viscose or cotton category, and stuff that like it needed somewhere to go. So anyway, this is sort of slightly random box. And then behind this box is my bag of like mending and refashioning projects that I need to do. So if you're curious what's in there, I'm not going to go through it now, but I did do a video in Me Made May, but it wasn't last year, I think it was the year before, so like 2022. So if you watch that video, that's probably still what's in this box to get mended. So now hopefully I will get around to doing some of them, because at least I can access it now by moving the box that's in front. But yeah, let me know if you'd like to see some upcycling / mending videos, and then maybe that will motivate me to do it, or maybe I'll just never do it. Anyway, that's what's in the back there, and this is like a kind of bit of batting in the back. So yeah, that is the before and after of my stash reorganisation. So my aims with this were basically just to get everything more accessible, bit neater, and just to be able to like see and use what I have got. And I think I've achieved that here. I do feel like being able to see like all the fabric, and now having fabric on every single shelf, makes it seem like I've got a lot more fabric than it felt like when it was just on one shelf. And they can be a bit bulkier folded onto the comic book boards rather than folded just flat. But it does mean that none of them are getting like lost, because they were all sort of slipping down behind when they were just in the pile before. So yeah, let me know what you think of this before and after, and if there's any of the things that I've done that you would be tempted to try in your own stash. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe to Blossom Sandwich if you haven't already, if you want to see a bit more of my sewing life. So I think I will be sharing an actual sewing project in the next video, including fitting and all the details. So stay tuned for that. It might be next week, or it might be in a couple of weeks' time. We'll see how everything goes. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you around. Bye.